So I'm here in a couple of capacities. Number one, I am the Chief Sustainability Officer for this small little mom and pop packer processor out of Brazil called JBS. But I'm also here today as the president of the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. It's a lot of words. It sounds impressive. It's not. So what I want to do is I want to challenge you on kind of your view of sustainability. Is this a threat, a risk, or an opportunity for your segment of the supply chain? And kind of lay out why we are where we are today with this incredibly nebulous term. So sustainability, it's this new buzzword. And we talked about if we handed out everybody a sheet of paper, asked you to write down a definition, everybody would come up with something different, right? And so the question is, just in very blunt terms, what the hell does it mean, right? And it's very dependent upon the stakeholder who's talking about the issue at that given moment. If it's an environmental NGO, it's about saving the planet, right? If it's a nasty businessman like me, it's long-term profitability, it's the viability of my business, right? If it's the cow-calf sector, it better be about how are you passing on your operation to the next generation. How do we keep these kids on the farm instead of going into town being dentists and doctors, right? How do we proliferate, successfully continue our legacy, our operations into the future? This is sustainability, okay? Don't lose sight of what this really is. You're going to hear a lot about carbon footprint. You're going to hear a lot about a lot of things. I'll tell you what, I was in South Texas about a month ago at a dear friend of mine's operation in Corpus. I tell you his name, but it's none of your business. They bought the first parcel of land that constitutes that operation in 1910, okay? They're German Americans, okay? What happened in 1914? There's a little bit of a scuffle over in Europe. It became slightly less popular to be a German American in South Texas, okay? The German American Heritage Days weren't meeting every Thursday for Wiener Schnitzel, right? But they made it through that. They continued their operation, dropped some more mother cows on the land, and continued on. And then in the mid-30s, this failed artist out of Vienna decided he was going to control Germany and Austria, Czechoslovakia, and the Sudetenland, and all of Europe, right? And it became really unpopular to be a German American in South Texas, okay? But they made it through that. And they had hurricanes, and then they had droughts. And you fast forward 104 years later, and here today, they still have an operation. I still have a viable cow-calf operation contributing to the beef sector. That is sustainability. Don't lose sight of that. I'm going to talk about a lot of environmental and a bunch of other stuff. That is sustainable. Always remain grounded on that. So let's talk about the consumer's view, because the consumer is just confused out of his and her mind, right? This is what they think of when they think of agriculture. This is Norman Rockwell's The County Agent, right? It's a beautiful painting from probably the 30s. It's got a red and white barn. It's got the little girl with the curly hair and her 4-H folder. It's got the extension agent. It's got free-range chicken running around catching salmonella and avian influenza. Cats and dogs are living together, right? There's no black people. There's no Hispanics, right? It's this 1930s idyllic vision of agriculture, which does not represent our modern system. Then you've got American Gothic, the stoic farmer, the wife who's fearing for her life. You have these old classic paintings of the red and white barn, the rolling hills, the horse-drawn carriage, the black and whites. Just beautiful visions of agriculture. But it shows you how divorced the modern consumer is from modern agriculture. They think their food comes from the back of a grocery store often. And then you have niche programs such as organic. There's nothing wrong with organic. But a lot of people equate organic with sustainability. And if you heard from our other speakers before me who said it's about doing more with less, you could argue that organic does less with more, consumes more resources, right? It's not to say that organic systems can't be sustainable, but the consumer is equating niche systems with sustainability, and they're 100% incorrect. And then you have taste the grass-fed difference, right? Most people don't understand that all cattle are grass-fed, and some are just grain-finished. But grass-fed has also become this notion, this idyllic notion of sustainability, right? Again, consuming more resources to produce less beef per animal, utilizing that system. Nothing wrong if you're in a grain-fed or grass-fed system. Godspeed. People are paying a premium for it. I'm a capitalist. I'm okay with that. But that is not sustainability, okay? And then you'll love this one. This is from a group out in California. Their cattle are 100% grass-fed, on pasture always, no pesticides, no irrigation. Wow, God bless them for that. Family farm raised, never confined, nor hormones, organic practices, no antibiotics, no fertilizer, and never fed corn. And it's probably a really good product until it's on your plate. But that being said, they are defining this as their definition of sustainability, this system. Again, a misunderstanding of what the term means. And then we have the activists like PETA, right? I apologize for the bluntness of this, but I threw a party, but the cattlemen couldn't come, talking about impotence for consuming red meat. This is the type of crazed propaganda that's out there. And then, of course, you can't be a meat-eating environmentalist, right? So this is the challenge that we're facing it. But if we don't define this term, if we don't get our arms around sustainability and define our own destiny, these are the crazies that will. It's Michael Pollan from Omnivore's Dilemma, Food Inc., The Meat Racket, which attacked Tyson. Even my people are in. Look at this. I mean, eating meat is a sin. Cowspiracy. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Don't waste your time watching it. And then this young man from Europe, who almost single-handedly eliminated LFTB from our supply chain, right? A viable technology that consumers decided they didn't want. And consumers have the right to do that. But this was a sustainable technology. It allowed us to do more with less. It allowed us to produce more beef per animal to maximize the utilization of each animal. And for me, working for this small little mom and pop packer that kills about 100,000 head of cattle every day, I have an ethical obligation to maximize the value of that animal, right? From the blood to the tail to every edible portion of that animal. And when you take away a technology like this from me, now I'm not meeting that ethical obligation in the manner in which I'd like to, right? So again, we're not having an honest discussion in the media about what sustainability really means. It leads to decisions like this, where we lose the opportunity to really capture value. So have you heard about this good food movement? It's huge in the Northeast. They talk about good food, right? And good food, it ain't you. I'm sorry, right? That's good food, right? It's local, it's organic, it's grass-fed, it's niche systems, right? And the rest of us, like me, we're the evil factory farmers. And this is the debate that has occurred now all across America, right? It's a poor place from which to have a conversation, right? Sustainability is an empowerment tool. It's about production efficiency. It's about improving your operation. It's about doing more with less. And anybody can take on that mantra. Anyone can achieve more sustainable outcomes, irrespective of the system that you practice, right? So don't get caught up in this niche system stuff. Don't get caught up in this intensification is bad. Do the right thing. You can be more sustainable by improving the efficiency of your operation. But the consumer is so confused. So I love this slide. Protect me from what I want, all right? I want organic and natural, local and natural, because it's better for the environment and my health. Where's the proof of that, Professor? I haven't seen that peer-reviewed study. But there is no health benefit difference that I've seen. And more importantly, those systems can't be scaled to meet that global challenge we were talking about, right? And they say, I don't want stuff from conventional big ag because it's bad for the environment, it's bad for my health. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the most modern, efficient, safest, affordable food supply in the history of mankind because of the work that you all do in this room. And we're not getting credit for it. In fact, we're getting attacked for it, right? It's a crazy la-la land in which we all live today. But it's the consumer reality. And then I've got my friends at the USDA, Secretary of Agriculture, which comes from your great state. Thank you for that contribution. They are trying to insert sustainability into the nutritional guidelines, right? We can't even agree, the four of us, on what sustainability means, but yet they're going to create national federal policy on sustainable diets, right? I mean, this is just craziness, right? But here's what you saw in the last presentation. We know that production intensity and emission intensity are inversely related, right? So that we know that as you meet an animal's maintenance needs, and then you go beyond that with the feeding, they become more productive. They produce more pounds, right? This is just, it's very simple. Anybody that raises animals know that. So if you're in a more intense system, you're inherently producing more. You're diminishing your footprint. You're diminishing your water consumption, grain consumption, all these things, right? And again, there's no current international methodology for particularly the socioeconomic categories of what sustainability means, let alone the environmental areas. So what is the U.S. federal government, what are their standards? What are their measures going to be for what's sustainable and what's not? And then again, they're so focused on natural and organic, and I always tell my environmental NGO friends, if you want to save the world and you want to focus on 3 to 4% of production, have at it, right? But the rest of us doing 97% of the production, work with us. That's where you're going to really effectuate meaningful on-the-ground change. It's not through the promotion of niche systems. So again, we've seen all these numbers. The only thing that I would add to this is that you're going to see 3 billion in middle class growth. 3 billion more people entering the middle class. And as we heard earlier, when you give people more money, the first thing they do is they don't go out and buy a Cadillac, right? Some of the brothers do, but generally that's not what society does, right? They eat more dairy, milk, eggs, cheese, and protein, and yes, beef. So the reality is protein consumption is going to increase. So how do we sustainably meet that increased demand? That's one option. And if you give me a list, I can make some suggestions. But it's important to note, and I thought the professor did a fantastic job, it is the balance of these 3 issues, the economic, the social, and the environmental. In very simple terms, sustainability is everything. Everything. There is nothing that is not included in the matrix of sustainability. This is why it's so hard to define, because everyone wants to pull out their niche issue, their issue du jour, and you can't do that with sustainability. It's a balance. It's a continuum. It's everything that you do. It's everything that's important to you and your operation and your family. Meeting the needs of the present while improving the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, right? It's about these folks, right? It's about those future beef consumers. Will they be able to enjoy the same things that we enjoy tomorrow? And it's about continuous improvement, right? And this is the nature of American agriculture. No one's more efficient than us when it comes to beef production, right? What's the size of the U.S. herd today? Maybe 90 million? Are we at 90? What's the size of the Brazilian herd? 200 million. Overall beef production? Equal. Equal. Why? Because of those nasty intensified production systems, technology used in agriculturalists in the United States who've made the most efficient beef production system on the planet Earth. No offense, Canadians, love you too. Okay? So when you limit the scope of sustainability, you limit the opportunity, right? Sustainability is not about sourcing. It's not a sourcing program, right? You saw from McDonald's, they want a source of sustainable cattle, but they're also focused on what's going on in their stores, how they're treating their franchisees, how they're paying their workers. All of these issues involve sustainability. It's not a sourcing program. So when someone comes to you and starts talking about sustainability and just wants to source your cattle and not give you a premium for it, tell them to walk out the other side, right? Get off my property. It's a balance, right? It's all these issues. Social, economic, environmental, right? And look at some of those issues in social. Animal welfare, worker safety, human rights, community involvement, property rights, God forbid, beef safety, beef quality, consumer trust. These are all equally important issues when you discuss sustainability. It's not just carbon footprint. And frankly, when you ask consumers, do you care about carbon footprint, they all say yes. And then when you give them the option to make choices in the grocery store, they all say, not so much. All right? So stay grounded when we talk about this issue. Take the holistic approach. It prevents your opponents from focusing on their issue du jour. They have to take on the entire issue, all three pillars. So traditionally, when we talk about sustainability, this is from the Global Reporting Initiative, which is a big socialist communist organization that tries to ground everyone on what sustainability means. Look at the environmental. This is generally what the public thinks of when they think of sustainability, right? Materials, energy, water, biodiversity, emissions, effluents, waste, blah, 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 blah. But look at the social pillar that this body has come up with. Labor management, occupational health and safety, training, diversity and equal opportunity. I like that. Y'all could work on some diversity in this room. Investment, non-discrimination, freedom of association and collective bargaining. These are all very important issues, and they're all sustainability, right? And the social pillar is one of those areas where arguably it lies the greatest opportunity to demonstrate those shared values with those who consume our product, right? So don't just get spun around the axle on the environmental. There's great opportunities for us in the social, right, and in the economic. So very quickly, if you look, we've got 7.2 billion global consumers. Middle class is growing. Consumption's going up. You have this vocal, radical group out there that wants to reduce choice. They want to enforce their decisions on the rest of the planet. They've got great ideas. Just ask them. They want you to go organic, grass-fed, vegan, whatever it is. And those people have an incredible, disproportionate influence on corporate boardrooms, particularly of publicly traded companies, right? We've seen it with LFTB. We've seen it with beta agonists. These folks start a campaign. The corporate boardroom goes, I don't want that problem. I need to get this off the docket, eliminate that technology from the chain. We're making short-term business decisions that are impacting the long-term viability of our industry. We've got to stop it, right? We've got to educate the supply chain, educate consumers, make sure they understand the value proposition of the choices that they're making, to speak honestly and transparently, right? And then we have our friends, the NGOs. Some of them are responsible. Some of them are not. And the challenge for some of these environmental groups is they have a very great message that directionally consumers like. But consumers don't necessarily make their business decisions, their choices in the grocery store based on these directional notions, right? They're not willing to necessarily pay a premium because the cotton T-shirt has sustainable cotton in it and it's going to cost me $2 more a package for 3 Ts, right? Sounds great on paper, doesn't necessarily play out in the marketplace, all right? So when you look at the U.S. beef production system, if you're an NGO out of Washington, D.C., you're going to have a very tough time influencing 780,000 U.S. cow-calf producers, right? Most of them are going to meet you at the gate with a shotgun, say, get off my property. You're going to have a very difficult time influencing 70,000 plus feedlot operators, right? And you're definitely going to have a tough time influencing 7 billion global consumers. So who do they influence? Me, Susan, the big people in the middle, right? This has been their motto, right? We'll protest your store. We'll show up as a black and white cow with bloody teats and say that you're abusing your animals, and we'll make sure that people don't consume your product. That message gets to the boardroom. Decisions are made very quickly, impacts the sustainability of our whole chain, right? And we also have wonderful NGO partners, and I'll talk about some of those that are involved in the Global Roundtable who've taken a different approach. But this is the reality. There's this huge pressure on us to address this issue of sustainability, and most people don't even know what the hell it means. That's the challenge, right? We're not talking in the same terms. And again, I would argue, right along with the professor, the sustainable challenge for the United States is the average age of the cow-calfman. It's 67, 68 years of age. It's supply chain constraints. It's producing product out of spec that consumers don't want. Inconsistency in product. It's financial barriers to industry. It's regulatory pressure from state and federal governments. And it's, will technology be an option for our industry going forward? Because if we all have to go back to the way we did agriculture in 1930s, you're just going to have to pick out 1.5 billion people who are going to starve to death, right? So this is the approach the round table was taken. It's a round table, so there's no head, right? Although most days it feels like that. So who are we? The Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. It's this global multi-stakeholder initiative with the mission to advance continuous improvement and the sustainability of the global beef value chain through leadership, science, multi-stakeholder engagement. What's not there? New World Order, global fiat, right? Global standard, global certification. The Global Roundtable is an empowerment exercise, giving people the tools, identifying the key issues that allow you to go to your operation, to your specific challenges, and address them in a sustainable manner. That's it. It's not about setting a global certification scheme. If you hear someone say that, they're wrong. This was a quote in a cow-calf producer magazine. A top-down, corporate, fascist regime controlling every entity in the beef supply chain, including and specifically targeting cow-calf producers. So I've joined an organization during a time of compressed supply to put further pressure on that compressed supply so I can pay more. That makes absolutely no sense. This is not us, right? We're not Tiananmen Square, okay? So very quickly, our vision, a world in which all aspects of the value chain are environmentally sound, socially responsible, and economically viable. And we talk about economic viability rather than profitability. Why? Because profitability is a snapshot in time, right? You can be not so profitable today, but long-term still be economically viable. We can't guarantee profits, but we should be guaranteeing that long-term arc of potential success in the economic pillar. We're very different from some of these other roundtables you may have heard of, like the Roundtable for Responsible Soy or Palm Oil or Cotton, in that we have robust producer participation. Okay? NCBA sits on my executive committee. They sit on my executive board. Canadian cattlemen are members. Cattle Council Australia are members. The largest cattle producing group in Brazil are members. We have producer members from Colombia, Uruguay, Paraguay, from all around the world. Producers sitting at the table helping to determine their own destiny, right? The Europeans have taken a slightly different approach. They have a group, this side platform, which is only businesses, right? There's no cow-calf producers at the table. And they're constructing a definition for sustainability as well. That's one approach. We've taken a different approach. We think producers must be at the table to help define their own destiny, particularly when a lot of the changes in sustainability that are being requested are at the cow-calf level, or at the feedlot level, or at the stocker backgrounder level. So we've got a bunch of corporate logos up there. They're all very pretty. And again, triple bottom line. That's what it's all about. It's balancing the social, the economic, and the environmental, and the sweet spot in the middle is where sustainable beef occurs. You can't focus on any one pillar and achieve a sustainable outcome. You can't be asked to do a bunch of expensive things on your operation that drive you out of business in 10 years. It doesn't make any sense. It ain't sustainable. Okay? So our definition, very similar to the professors, is planet, people, animals, and progress. Very simple. You could tell it to a 2-year-old, they'd repeat it back to you. Right? Very simple. Now this shows you the multi-stakeholder negotiation process here. Right? Because in my mind, it should be people, planet, animals, and progress. Right? But my NGOs didn't like that. They said they're out to save the planet. And I said, well, no one's trying to save the frickin' moon because there's no people on the moon. Right? Let's keep it in perspective. But the NGOs won, and that's what a negotiated settlement is all about. So planet is first. Let's save the planet first, and hopefully there's some people left. Animals in progress, right? So we released our definition. It's a global definition. It's very broad. A lot of the activists that don't like our industry don't like our definition because it doesn't ban hormones. It doesn't ban beta agonists. It doesn't ban technology, right? It's a very broad definition that covers the basics that we think are the issues that should be addressed if you're on a sustainable journey. It's natural resources, people in the community, animal health and welfare, food, and efficiency and innovation. And that's code word for technology. Make no mistake. If we're not becoming more efficient, if we're not innovating these systems, we have no shot at meeting that 2050 challenge. No shot. And when it comes to beef, there's really only 3 regions of the world that are going to meet that challenge. It's North America, South America, and Australia, right? And we have the most, in North America, including you, Canada, the most efficient beef production system in the history of mankind, right? Be proud of it. We only focused on principles because we're not trying to create a standard or a definition to hold people hostage. It's an empowerment exercise. We had a global conference in Sao Paulo just a few weeks ago in November with nearly 300 people from over 21 countries. This is a big issue. People are focused on it, particularly when it comes to beef, particularly because of some of the crazy stuff that came out of the United Nations. All right? So it's a focus of everyone. And we voted on our definition, which covered those 5 basic areas. We had 96% plus approval rating, right? From producers, from retailers, from NGOs, from governments, from everyone, right? So we have huge movement on this balanced approach to actually talking honestly about sustainability and not pretending it's simply grass-fed beef. And again, our focus is on local solutions that have global impact, right? We can raise cattle in Moultrie, Georgia, in western Montana, just about anywhere except for Antarctica. So you can't come up with some cookie-cutter one-size-fits-all for beef production. You have to provide flexibility and empowerment so people are given the options to meet the unique sustainable challenges for their geopolitical structure, for their environmental structure, for their geography, right? It's an empowerment tool. Sustainability is a wonderful opportunity for all of you. Don't lose sight of that.